Hey guys, today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to gather around the convention campfire, which is why I have the magic of green screening behind me. The plan is to tell you 5 ridiculous stories that have happened to me at anime conventions, so that hopefully you go to anime conventions if you haven't tried them out yet. And then hopefully, if you've got a story that you want to share, we can start passing these around and maybe do this as a weekly thing, who knows. I guess I should start with some bullet points. The 5 stories I'm going to be telling are the time I almost got arrested at Anime Expo, the time that Dennis Rodman bought me and my party drinks at Anime Expo, the time where I was almost attacked by Pyramid Head, believe it or not, and let's see, the time where we rescued folks from a burning vehicle, and then finally the time where Stan Lee told me that I was the reason that Captain America was created. But we'll get to that. We're gonna go ahead and go in order. I guess that means we're gonna start with story 1, which is the time I almost got arrested at Anime Expo. Luckily we're gonna use this green screen maybe to display some images where appropriate. Anime Expo of, gosh, I guess it was a couple of years ago, was my first time driving cross country. I'm originally from New York, and so I'm living in Dallas now, and if you're from New York, you rely on Metro, you know, the MTA. You go on the bus, and maybe this is true if you're from Europe too, you don't need to learn how to drive. And so when I came down here to Texas, I didn't think I needed to learn how to drive. My friends were very insistent that if we were going on a road trip to Anime Expo, I couldn't go unless I was able to contribute. So I got my license. I have a really awful license picture that I should try to show you guys later. But I think it'll be awful enough if you hear what happened to me. So I've got just the paper license. I don't have the driver's license yet. And we get to Anime Expo, and so I'm not used to, you know, the rules of the road, and so I make this illegal U-turn. And so I don't have my paper license on me. I don't have any photo identification on me. And I don't have really anything to prove that this car that's not in my name, that's from Texas, is mine. And so a wonderful police officer pulls me over and asks me some questions. I'm still kind of a young whippersnapper, so I'm not quite sure how to respond appropriately. But I was really lucky that not only did some cosplay photographers recognize me, which is why we'll have some beautiful photos to show you, but also the guy just happened to get a hot call. Let me tell you, it's a crime to drive without a license. It's a crime to fail to display a driver's license if you have it. It was a crime to make an illegal U-turn. That's why I got pulled over in the first place. And so, you know, it looks like I stole a car from Texas, drove to Anime Expo, and have nothing to prove. So thank you everybody who stood out there on the streets cheering me on until basically the police officer figured it was more trouble than it's worth. What does that mean? It means all kinds of crazy stuff can happen to you at a convention. I can't tell you how many stories my friends have between them and law enforcement or traffic or any kind of thing where basically it's a car full of cosplay props and they're trying to explain what's going on. Maybe that's not the best story to start off with, so let's move on to story number 2. That's Dennis Rodman buying me and my party drinks. Same Anime Expo, it was a very fun year. I remember basically there was a very tall African-American gentleman with some interesting hair sitting at the bar, and we were all just kind of hanging out. You know, remember I'm freshly getting my license, you know, so I can't even drink at the bar, but I'm just, you know, hanging out with everybody. And this gentleman sits down, big sunglasses, big hands, towering figure, sits down and he puts his hands in front of him and he says, "Tell me something I don't know." And we're speechless because instantaneously we all know that Dennis Rodman is sitting behind us, that the guy from that great movie Double Team or the Texas basketball team, a guy who's also from Dallas too, I believe, Oak Cliff, he's just sitting in front of us and we're speechless. I mean, it's great that we're at Anime Expo, but famous people go to these things. You might have heard stories of, you know, Andrew Garfield running around in Spider-Man, or Bryan Cranston in a costume right out of Breaking Bad. So you would be surprised that a lot of celebrities go to these cons too. We couldn't really figure out how to tell him something he didn't know, but in exchange for us humoring him, he bought us, including me, all drinks, and then he got us water bottles. Very sweet for somebody who, I guess, understands what alcohol can do to a bunch of kids. But yeah, that's story number 2. Next, this one's a little bit more anime convention-y. This is story number 3. You guys have been hearing me rant about Silent Hills or PT on the PlayStation 4 for weeks now. I'm still gravely terrified of it. I might end up live streaming it in the future, but I just don't do horror games well. You know, I try to be tough, but honestly, I'm a really big crybaby. And that game you know, the only reason I even know what happened at the end is I had friends play it for me while I sat in the other room, dictating the information through a third party. Like, I mean, that's how afraid I am of the game, that I have to have layer after layer after layer of removal there. But, this, you know, before Silent Hills PT, and I think it's Lisa is the name of the ghost, there was Pyramid Head. And we all love Pyramid Head, and we all think it's very funny, but I'm terrified of Silent Hill 2 just as much as I am of anything. So that scraping noise creeps me out to no end. So at anime conventions, I do a lot of running around. Sometimes I'm a judge, sometimes I'm running on staff, whatever, you know, the occasion calls for. And I like taking stairs at conventions. If you've been to an anime convention, or if you haven't, you're gonna learn that elevators are just a no-go. You get everybody crammed in there, people are very tight, but you sometimes have security staff who says, you know, you can only have so many people in the elevator, or you have a bunch of people standing at the front and they really won't let you in. So I take stairs. And I happen to be taking the stairs that day, and I'm just running down the stairs, and it looks like I've got no access on these stairs, so I gotta go all the way down to the basement. Well, I'm getting closer to the basement, and I start to hear a... You probably can't hear that, but just a scrape, just a... And I'm like, that sounds awful. Okay, I'm gonna be okay. Let's just keep going. It's not a big deal, it's just an anime convention. And I start getting closer and closer, and there's that same... And I'm like, okay, let's just go down the stairs, and whatever it is, we'll deal with it. You know, there's an old saying from Yu-Gi-Oh, that series I love so much. I think it's, if the monsters are real, then the magic is real. The idea that, like, okay, if there's a monster sitting at the bottom of these stairs waiting for me, maybe I'll use some of my superpowers in my costume and I'll figure out what it is. Obviously, that's just something I say to make myself feel better, but I really needed it. And so I get down to the base of the stairs, and there it is. It's Pyramid Head. And, you know, I don't know if you've seen Pyramid Head, but the long, brownish, reddish pyramid, and the muscular body, and the blood-stained apron, and the huge knife, and he's just shuffling on the floor, and I'm just like... You know, I don't know what to say, but my sense of humor picks up, but I'm like, are you okay in there, Pyramid Head? And a voice calls out, and the voice is like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm just adjusting my helmet, I'll be okay. And I'm like, cosplayer, okay, okay. Well, you have a good one, and I just ran, and that was was exciting. You will run into all kinds of improbable situations at anime conventions, and I think running into Pyramid Head in a really kind of creepy staircase, very dimly lit, at the very bottom of the basement, I mean, right out of Silent Hill. The fourth story, let's see, what was the fourth one again? It was... Fourth one is how we save people out of a burning vehicle. This one was also at Anime Expo, and Anime Expo is just kind of, I guess, a magnet for trouble for some of these stories. We happen to have a friend who needed to get his glasses fixed, and when you're at conventions, you really got to plan ahead, because at least most of the conventions I've been to are in downtown areas. And so you don't have a CVS, and you don't have 24-hour Walmarts, and you don't have fast food. And so I do recommend that if you're coming, you know, maybe pack some snacks, scope out the area, figure out what you're going to be able to do downtown in order to feed yourself. Well, you know, besides being able to feed yourself, you might have to go run and get some backup cosplay supplies. Well, in this case, this guy didn't need cosplay supplies, he just needed to see. His glasses broke and he needed a screwdriver to fix his glasses. Well, we decided we were gonna go, but we had to drive so far because, like I said, if you don't come to a convention with everything, you're gonna miss out because, well, there really isn't a lot around downtown areas. And so we drove and we drove and we drove, got lost, finally found somewhere that was open, got the screwdriver, fixed his glasses, hooray. But on the way back, we actually happened to catch a car on fire. Or no, should have said that. We happened to catch the moment a car caught on fire when it had crashed. We didn't catch a car on fire, that was misspeaking. But we pulled over, you know, we didn't pass, and we basically just used all that energy we have from hugging random strangers at cons and put it into basically giving people a real life hug that they needed. We were able to pry the people out of the burning vehicle, call 911 emergency services, and tend to them until the paramedics came. So if conventions teach you anything, if you got enough, I guess, chutzpah in you to, you know, hug random people or wear super revealing clothes, maybe use that in or out of the convention, and you can apply that towards the greater use. Maybe that was a little bit of a roundabout way to get to that moral, but you know, it's something that happened at a convention that I just can't believe. And some of these stories, you know, they would only happen at a convention. I haven't really saved a lot of people from burning vehicles outside of Anime Con. So there's a lot to look forward to if you go ahead and find your local con. The last story, and this is my favorite, I mentioned I was a New Yorker. Well, I've got a New York sense of humor. Crass, you know, we like to make jokes about each other, etc. I happened to be at Dallas Comic-Con, and it was my first time finally meeting Stan Lee. And I couldn't be more excited because I was a huge fan of Spider-Man. You know, before all these Marvel movies came out, also a huge fan of Captain America. I watched that awful 1994 Iron Man TV show. I mean, big fan. And so we go, and I go get my picture with him, and the picture looks great, but I choke. I'm just like, you know, howdy, and just, you know, use some of that New Texas vernacular I have, and get a picture with him, and that's it. So my friends and I, we get together and we decide that I'm gonna go get an autograph of just, you know, some memorabilia merchandise, and that will be my moment that I can talk to him. Because I'll tell you, you know, you gotta feel for these people who are celebrities getting their photo taken with strangers and whatnot. They're basically just sitting there very stiff. Somebody walks in the photo, takes a picture, and then walks out of the photo next, and it goes back and forth. So you don't get a lot of time to chit chat. So the second time I saw Stan Lee, just a few minutes later, maybe it was an hour, I finally got the courage, and I just practiced my speech, and then when we sat down and let him have it, I said, you know, I gotta thank you. You know, I'm just a scrawny little kid from New York, but between Spider-Man, Captain America, and you, I couldn't hope to come from a better class of people. And he sits there and he's smiling and he laughs a little bit while he's signing the memorabilia, and he looks up and he says, I did it all for you. And just that moment really cemented everything that I thought about Stan Lee, that he was just another one of those crass New Yorkers that could have been a member of my family. Honestly, you don't really get a lot of my accent anymore. You know, I don't really sound like a New Yorker, but everybody in my family has that sort of Long Island, Queens sort of accent, and I guess by all rights and intentions, I should have sounded just like Stan. But luckily, or maybe unluckily, people like accents, but I'm happy with my voice the way it is. Anyhow, as you can see, you know, meeting celebrities, exchanging jokes with them, finding out that they're just real people, rescuing people, getting scared, you know, ghostless or whatever from Silent Hill characters. There are a million different stories. And so what I would love for you guys to do is, if you have been to a convention, go ahead and just type in the comment box below one of your amazing adventures that you've had at a convention. And, you know, maybe we'll come back and do this next week. If you want, you can also record this. I'd like to get some friends and just tell all of the ridiculousness, because if we don't archive this, even just by saying it to one another, you know, I guess over Skype or what have you, it'll be lost. And this culture of conventions and events, dating back from like when Dragon Con was a very small event in Atlanta to 20-something years later to how huge it is now, there are a million adventures, and I hope that you guys have a great one the next convention you go to. I'll catch you later.